Sonic the Blue Tumor and his colourful cast of suspicious eyesores have been the laughingstock of the video game industry for the better half of all time.
Sonic was never good.
Yeah, face it is, they all want to have sex with Big the Cat.
Luckily, we Sonic fans have been experiencing somewhat of a renaissance when it comes to our favourite franchise. You see, Sega decided to kill this franchise not only once, but twice. Sonic 06 was a... I'm not gonna go over Sonic 06. What do I look like? Some sort of YouTuber? Some sort of late 2000s YouTuber? Wow, another glitch. This game sucks. Anyway, guys, make sure to hit the subscribe button if you hate hearing women's opinions. Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric was a PS4 game that Sega told Sonic Team to port to the grossly underpowered and underselling Wii U mere minutes before the game was set to release, making for a critical and commercial failure, leading to drastic changes in Sonic Team's infrastructure moving forward. And move forward, they didn't do. Gone were the days of Sonic feeling high budget and close to polished. It had become heartbreakingly clear that these games were given even smaller budgets, and well, dev time was always on the rushed side. 2017 saw the release of two mainline Sonic games, one being a lovingly fan-developed return to form, rivaling the games on which it takes inspiration from, and the other game drew straight lines for 2 hours. For everything Sonic 06 got wrong, Sonic Forces didn't even allow itself to get wrong. It lacks any sort of ambition, it takes zero risks unless you count the character creator. 3D Sonic Boost's level design was simplified so much that it makes Red Dead Redemption 2 look almost interactive. For many fans, Sonic Frontiers was the game that really put Sonic back on the right track. Apart from its technical shortcomings and recycling of level designs that were intended for games with drastically different physics, the game offered a legitimately decent experience with fairly high highs and, bro, are you listening to this shit? Even then, Sonic Frontiers felt like a desperate game, one that was made with good intentions, but with time and resources allotted to it that was just not good enough to back it all up. Sonic Team obviously doesn't want to make bad games, it's just that Sega has put these developers into a position where they are at their most disadvantageous. However, on one fateful January morning, I arised from my slumber only to be disappointed yet again by no talk of Bloodborne on that day's PlayStation State of Play, but then holy shit. Sonic Generations, the last really good 3D Sonic game, is finally getting a re-release for modern consoles, you know, seeing as this 2011 game is still stuck on Xbox 360. Holy shit! I'm gonna go commit a love crime. Being a Sonic fan allows me to endure a lot of bad video games. If it wasn't for my unconditional love for this blue hedgehog, I probably would have never played some of these games, let alone finished them. When the credits rolled on Big the Cat's story on Sonic Adventure 1, it really made me feel like Batman. I wanted to find out who committed this fucking crime. But when the credits rolled on Shadow Generations, I was like, that was pretty good. Sonic X Shadow Generations is one of the only 3D Sonic games that I can in good conscience recommend to a sane person. Not only do you get Sonic Generations, a game comprised of really good 3D and 2D levels going through Sonic's history, SA1, SA2 Heroes, Unleash Sonic Colors, you get an entirely new game. Shadow goes through trauma again. And you go through levels from Shadow's past games like Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Heroes and Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic Frontiers. He wasn't in Sonic Frontiers. Shadow Generations gets to receive the best and yet rarest compliment a 3D Sonic game can receive. It just works.
It's not. I'm not kidding.
Sonic Heroes is one of my favorite Sonic games, but this game just doesn't fucking function. The rail grinding is straight up broken, the homing attack is fucking annoying, and the entire game just has a thick, juicy coating of jank, and it makes recommending this game pretty hard. Even though the game could be really fun once you learn the game's quirks and bullshit, is it so wrong for me to want to enjoy a 3D Sonic game without any of that baggage? Well, apparently, no. Shadow Generations feels polished. It is polished, not only in the way it feels to control, but the mechanics for the most part feel like they've been well thought out and fine-tuned. From the way they're incorporated into the levels to how it never gets too much for the players to understand and use. Chaos Control is initially a very simple mechanic, momentarily freezing time for 5 seconds, yet this one mechanic creates so many consequences that Sonic Team not only recognized what those consequences were, but how they can be implemented in fun and creative ways. It doesn't only freeze the environment in time, it freezes the in-game timer, and since Sonic Team was just so creatively switched on, it only makes sense that one of the challenges, S ranks, is mostly only obtainable if you freeze the timer at the right moments. I'm not saying that these are the most in-depth abilities ever created, they are very simple, but it's just that each of these mechanics is realized to a great extent, a sentiment that I cannot offer to other 3D Sonic games. The Werehog stages in Sonic Unleashed reach about their maximum potential in the first level. Sonic Heroes character switching is about as mechanically in-depth as putting the square in the square hole. Tails and Eggman stages in Sonic Adventures 2 are as in-depth as a rock in sand. It's not even shallow, it's protruding. But this is good. Good job, Sonic Team. Shadow controls well. This is a boost game, meaning that instead of using momentum and spin dashes, your speed is granted to you via the boost button. Shadow doesn't feel as nimble as Sonic did in Adventure 1, but he's not as tanky as Sonic did in Generations and Unleashed. He's not as slippery as he was in Heroes or his own game, Shadow the Damn Hedgehog. Instead, he feels very planted, a consequence of there being no real momentum in this game whatsoever. I'm always sure of what Shadow is doing, and he controls well, but the fun doesn't come from how he controls. Sonic Adventure 1 is still the best Sonic has controlled in a 3D space in my opinion. It was an almost perfect translation of what made 2D Sonic work. Momentum was very much a factor, yet Sonic wasn't slippery. He felt nimble and was easy to control, not only on the ground but in the air, and honestly going back to Mario 64 right after playing Sonic Adventure, Mario feels a bit stiff. Shadow was much less exciting to control. The hub area being 3D is definitely an improvement over Sonic Generations, but having no momentum and a relatively low top running speed makes the white space feel like a bit of a missed opportunity. What the fuck is the point of this loop if there's no momentum to speak of, or if I could just do this? Well, that wasn't cool, but doing this isn't cool either. The pseudo-open world of Sonic Adventure is nothing special, but Sonic is. Mystic Ruins is just a little 3D plane of hills, but it lets Sonic and his physics shine. Shadow just wants to get to the next level, and really, who could blame him? With each new entry in the 3D Sonic series, the level design kept changing. Sonic Adventure had to reuse levels for the other Toomers to have their very own campaign. This led to Sonic having a little bit more open levels. Skips and time saves were achieved not just by finding a different route, but by utilizing the game's physics to get to that route. Sonic Adventure's physics were still here in SA2 to some extent, but the spin dash was severely nerfed and the speed stages, while still fun, became a lot more linear. Sonic Heroes once again became more linear, Sonic 06 happened, and then Sonic Unleashed just said, fuck it. Subway Surfers video game. Unleashed's boost stages might present themselves as 3D, but really, they're mostly 2D stages that you play from behind Sonic. Sure, there are moments of 3D platforming, but Sonic controls like a slippery tank, so these are rarely enjoyable. You can also occasionally break away from the straight path and go down a more optimal route. Sonic goes so fast in Unleashed that the first run-throughs of a level will see you missing most of the other routes, making these levels endlessly replayable, a goal that all Sonic games share. Pulling off a good run on Dragon Road feels amazing, and alternate routes are fun every time you successfully take one. But really, you can only do so much with the boost formula, and most of the time, you're not even playing from behind Sonic, it's just straight up 2.5D. Speak of the devil. Sonic Colors is a 2.5D game that was falsely advertised as a 3D game. I like Sonic Colors, but this is hardly a Sonic game. You're rarely going fast, and the levels are designed around gimmicks and platform challenges. I don't think it's perfect, not every wisp is fun to use, and I would have preferred fewer levels in favor of bigger 2-act stages, but hey, at least it's something unique. Sonic Generations was the last real hurrah for the boost gameplay. It didn't innovate much from Unleashed besides including a few more 3D platforming segments, but overall, the boost formula didn't really go anywhere. Sonic Team would go on to fumble around with completely different gameplay styles in Lost World and Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric until reverting back to the boost formula in Sonic Frontiers. Now with Shadow Generations, holy shit. Shadow's Act 1s are an amalgamation of the boost and adventure gameplay. The stages aren't incredibly open, but it's honestly closer to Sonic Adventure 2 than something like Sonic Unleashed. You don't have the spin dash, obviously, but the boost, well, it's a bit slow, but that means you can actually react to the level design better, and the first playthrough of levels become more engaging. Wait, was that? Oh, okay, so basically the first act of a stage is entirely 3D without any 2.5D segments, while the second act is entirely 2.5D, a welcome trade-off. The only time that this isn't the case is with the very last level where both acts of Radical Highway are completely 3D. It's even easier to accept the 2.5D when the second acts are still incredibly well designed. Mind my hyperbole, but these are some of the best Sonic levels ever created. All the levels are so good, and once again the mechanics reach very healthy levels of depth. Take these rocks in Sunset Heights for example. They seem just like an environmental obstacle, but if you have the inclination, Holy shit! After completing both acts of a stage, you gotta go through challenges that, once completed, give you boss keys to progress to the next boss. These mini challenge levels, once again, are extremely well designed and are so fun to chase those S ranks on. Compared to the other attempts at padding out Sonic games, this is easily the best attempt, and I would love more of this in the future. The bosses are okay. I don't have much to say about them other than that they do their job. The levels are why you're here. The game just works so well, it's so polished, the level design is so amazing, and I'd love to replay these levels over and over again, seeing as this game is quite short, but in between the lead up to seeing Shadow's childhood friend die, again, you revisit some levels from Shadow's past, and in some of these levels you get transported to Radical Highway. This is really cool. Until it's kinda not. The spectacle is obviously welcomed. It seems like Sega actually gave enough of a shit to give Sonic Team an understandable budget.
Mom, can you give me some money, please? Stop fucking around!
These segments look great and play fine. The level design takes a backseat most of the time and is often nothing crazy. So once the spectacle sort of wears off, all you're left with is a chunk of level that has really nothing to do with Rail Canyon or Space Colony Arc, making these levels honestly feel a bit incomplete. Sonic Generation stages felt complete. Seaside Hill and also Ocean Palace? I'm getting what I paid for and more. Shadow Generations Rail Canyon? Yeah, I guess I'm getting what I paid for, but the serving size is smaller and why is there a fucking rat on my plate? Bullet Station is relegated to the second act only? The game shines when it's just flexing its level design chops. Kingdom Valley doesn't have a Radical Highway jump scare, it's just a purely great stage. I would be less harsh on this if you could skip these segments on repeat playthroughs, or better yet, there were alternate versions of the stages that you can replay that don't include these segments at all since the game doesn't need to tell a story anymore. I'm also fucking harsh on it because we didn't get a ton of levels either, and I'm sorry, but since when is Chaos Island from Sonic Frontiers a level from Shadow's past? Sunset Heights is a stretch, but at least that game had a Shadow DLC. The worst part is that there's no level from Shadow the Hedgehog 2005. The Shadow the Hedgehog anniversary game that constantly references Shadow 05 with tons of collectibles from that game doesn't include a single level from the game. Instead, we get Chaos Island from Sonic Frontiers because fuck you! It cannot be overstated how brilliant these level designs are. Everything is fun and every mechanic is used in interesting ways. Chaos Spears not only destroy enemies, but activate certain springs and just generally opens up new paths, an extension of this 3D boost design philosophy. Not to mention that you can exploit this mechanic in the air to glide. As much as this is unintentional, it's surprisingly easy to pull off, and you don't have to be an expert speedrunner to find out how to use it intuitively. Doom Morph is a grower. Initially, it feels a bit clunky, but once you get used to it, it's so much fucking fun. Zen Flow Say is achieved in so many segments of these stages. The level design is just a fucking buffet of good ideas executed to perfection. It's just a shame that everything around it doesn't feel as high quality. The white space is fucking boring to look at, and the gold accents on everything look fuck ugly. White space was boring in Sonic Generations 2, but it was a 2D hub world in an anniversary game, so it didn't affect the overall feel of the game. I know this is an anniversary game as well, but it just doesn't work. I don't know how else they could have improved this, it's sort of just unfortunate. The platforming and running around to the challenge gates are fine. The genius level design doesn't really extend out to the hub area, but it's still engaging enough. The music in this game is honestly a super mixed bag too. The song that constantly plays over the white space is an orchestral version of what I've been told is All Hail Shadow, and that becomes incredibly grating to my ears. The melody is unpleasant, and I would have preferred literally anything else. The game is honestly at its worst in the white space. The bad music extends to the level themes. Chaos Island is once again at the forefront of criticism. The melody is honestly super nice at points, and that thumping kick is honestly pretty cool for a Sonic song, but then this happens.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna skip that.
There are some interesting production choices in these tracks. I think the music could have been a lot better, especially for a Shadow the Hedgehog game. The game's biggest overall issue is just that the budget still feels small. Besides the really impressive cutscenes and spectacle, the feeling of this game being rushed out haunts nearly every corner of this game, with the exception of the incredible level design. The ring counter feels like a placeholder, the music feels cheap, and the level themes come the fuck on. Playing through this game feels like Sonic Team desperately trying to scrounge together enough willpower and resources to make as good of a game as they can with the scraps that Sega so graciously gave them. The fact that we don't have a single level from Shadow 05 is so depressing, and having stuff like Chaos Island and Sunset Heights instead, I cannot be the only one that sees this as really fucking sad. Metal Overlord features chemical plant assets because of course it does. All of these complaints are very valid in my opinion, no fucking surprise, but the nature of this release makes it understandable why things are the way that they are. It is a secondary campaign added to a re-release of a 2011 game, but as a 2-in-1, this is not only incredible value, but is one of the highest quality and most consistent Sonic experiences that you can play. It's incomplete and not perfect, it could do with DLC, but most importantly, this is definitely a step in the right direction and is finally back to a standard set by Sonic games of yesteryear.